how do you think of sentience and cognition writ large in the first place?
Yeah. So sentience is not particularly a term that I myself use a lot. So this is something that mainly Nick Rouleau wanted to focus on for this paper, but that's fine.
You're a
I
co-author, yeah.
Yeah, exactly yeah, my co-author. Yeah, I talk a lot about cognition, and for me, this is a spectrum that indicates what kind of interaction protocol you're going to use with a given system. So for me, any kind of claims about intelligence, agency, cognition, any of those things, what they really are protocol claims about what the best way is to interact with a given system. So it's shorthand for a collection of tools and approaches that you might use. So this gets back to an illustration of the spectrum of persuadability that I show in my TAME paper from a couple of years ago. And the idea is that, and so in this spectrum, I show four basic. I mean, there are many more, but I show four basic waypoints. And there are simple machines like mechanical clocks. And if you tell me that something is a simple machine like that, what you mean is that you're not going to reward it, you're not going to punish it, you're not going to convince it of anything. The only way you're going to change what it does is by physical hardware rewiring. Right. And then there are more interesting machines like thermostats. So these are the kinds of things that you might use the tools of cybernetics on. So these are things that have little goals, or maybe bigger goals, depending on how sophisticated they are. They have set points. And one interesting way to manipulate that kind of system is to change the set point. That's an interesting way of manipulating it, because if you're going to set the set point as you do with your thermostat at home, you don't need to know everything about how it works. You don't need to rewire it. You just need to understand how it encodes that set point. And once you change that set point, then you can rely on the system to do what it does best, which is to try to manage things toward that set point, right? To reduce error towards that set point. So that's an interesting kind of more advanced class of agents. Then from there, you might think about agents that can learn. And so there you might be able to use the tools of behavioral science. So you might use rewards and punishments and things like that. And then you run into on the right side of that spectrum extremely kind of advanced cognitive agents that, let's say, human level, where you don't even directly use reward and punishment, but you use reasons. So you give them reasons to do things, and then you know that you're dealing with a system that will, because of its own commitments to logic, to various beliefs that it might have, will do certain things once you provide specific information, and you don't have to micromanage it at all. So what happens on that spectrum is that what the degree and the type of cognition tells you is what can you do in interactions with that system. And of course, towards the left end of that spectrum, you're talking mostly about prediction and control. But towards the right end of that spectrum, you're getting into things like relationships, where you're actually enjoying the agency that the system has. You're not just trying to get it to do specific things. It's more of a back and forth dance. You're having an actual relationship, as you might have with a human or some other high level system that has metacognition and goals like yours and things like that. So that's what I think cognition is. I think it's the science of understanding how systems make decisions, how they solve problems in their world. Another way to think about it is, and this becomes important when people say, well, at the lowest level of that spectrum, you get very minimal physical systems like rocks and things. And so what do you do there? And so I think to a large extent, what you're talking about on that spectrum is, to what degree do you need to concern yourself with the internal model that system makes of the environment. And what I mean by that is, if you have a bowling ball on a landscape of hills and valleys, all you need to do is think about what that landscape looks like to you. So your third person observation of that landscape, right? Your vision of that landscape as an external observer tells the whole story. You know, from that landscape, you know exactly what's going to happen. There's not much else to it. On the other hand, if you have a mouse on a similar landscape, your view of that landscape isn't nearly as important as the mouse's view in terms of predicting what's going to happen. Because if the mouse has memories of being rewarded or punished, or different valence about what's going on that landscape, that's really what determines what happens. So it's not the physical landscape that you as an observer sees, but it's actually the internal representation of that landscape that agent has. And that agent, it might be a mouse, it might be a Roomba, it might be some other kind of self driving robot, whatever it might be, a cell, whatever it is, the degree to which you have to ask yourself what the internal first person perspective